Hi, how are you?
I am a little tired, but so excited because fall's officially here in New York.
Oh, you must have like a New York dog. I feel this is a thing that exists in your life.
I don't have a New York fall song per se, but every single fall I make a new playlist
Ah,
depending on the fall that I think I'm going to have. So I wait for one song to spark it, and then it's like, it's time. And then I create my fall playlist. So each fall playlist might have a little bit of a different vibe. And I have immaculate music taste.
precis. I'm excited to hear this playlist. Okay. So this week we were inspired to talk to each other about the amazing piece that you wrote for our Global Bond newsletter, all about friendships, because friendship is such a recurring theme in our work and in our community, and of course in both of our lives as humans and also our relationship with each other. And I think it's such a big part of confidence that we don't really talk too much about. So we wanted to have this conversation together about friendships the upfront way. Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? What does that feel like? So tell us a bit about, you talked a lot about the kind of influences from your life and where the kind of foundational principles of what you were taught good friendship was, where they came from and the effect that that's had on you. So let's start there.
Yeah, so, I am a huge romantic in every sense of the word. I mean, it's not just like romantic relationships, like I romanticize everything. In fact, when we all met in March, that was a comment that was often made by the team as like we were able to speak off of Slack and in real life. And it was constantly like, you really romanticize your life. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And it's because I grew up on movies. Movies for me were not only an escape, but movies illustrated a life for me that was not attainable are presented in my current life, especially around the topic of friendship. So we've talked about, and it's been a conversation that many of us have had over the last few years, the last decade, about like romantic comedies and how much they've affected our minds, or romantic movies as like, people who are seeking, romantic relationships and expectations and all of that stuff. But for me personally, the thing that has probably rotted my teeth that's affected me more than romantic like relationships and movies are friendships.
Mm-hmm.
And everything from like TV shows to Degrassi, if anybody's like a 90s kid out there, to romantic comedies, to The Best Friend, it was this constant kind of message of who has friends, what's an epic friendship, even like coming of age stories, or even the quote unquote loser movies. They had like their little friend group. And I crave that. Like, I crave that sense of belonging to this group of people. I crave the idea of like having a best friend, of having that friend that would show up 3 o'clock in the morning with ice cream after a breakup, or that friend that's like, where do we hide the body? This like
that
very
was a that was a twist that I did not anticipate.
ice cream and like light burial. And this concept of friendship that's like so loyal, so all consuming, so epic.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that like, again I became obsessed with at a really young age as somebody who was painfully lonely.
Yeah, yeah, I so feel that too. So there's a funny story when I had my baby. The thing, I mean, I cried a lot, many times for different reasons, as anybody who's had a baby will relate to. But one of the sentences I kept saying over and over, like in floods of tears, was, I just want somebody to bring me a lasagna. And I had this fixed
Um,
idea in my mind of this friend that would come to the door and keep bringing us food, because in those first few weeks it's just so impossible to eat and cook. Like, it sounds wild, but it truly is. And when you live far away from your like nuclear family, obviously you rely on your friends and, you know, new relationships you've made. And that, like, hearing you talk about those ideas from movies and the kind of cliches, I can see now where that has come from. The same thing happened with the baby shower. Like, I put together my own baby shower, and I was absolutely devastated, like devastated, that I didn't have a friend who wanted to do that for me. And I think it's tough, and I think it's really, I mean, we could do a whole other conversation on how different the messages are that are targeted at girls versus boys on what friendship is and what friendship looks like. Because I see that there's also so many gaps in harmful narratives around male friendships as well. Like, you know, how often do we see, that's why sex education was so freaking awesome, because it's like the relationship between the two boys, you know, they're best friends and they just love each other and they hug and they kiss and they cry, and it was so gorgeous to see. We don't see that a whole ton.
I would have made your lasagna and I would have put so many vegetables in there. You know, I would have been making you ratatouille. You know, I would have given you that baby shower, and it would have been wonderful.
This is the really difficult thing though, because I know that you would have, and I know I have other friends in other parts of the world that would have, and I think that's a big part of being a grown woman trying to be in beautiful friendships today, is that most of us are trying to do that with people who are not in the same geographic location as us, and often people who are in different time zones, different countries, because we are just not of the generation where you grow up, you go to school, and you, in quotes, settle in that same kind of area. Where it's really easy for those ties to stay strong. And I think we kind of forget how big a force that is. And COVID, I think, being locked in showed us how really devastating that can be on your mental health and your physical health when you don't have that. Like, I know we'll talk often and you're like, gosh, I just wish we could like snuggle up together and watch. It's like we don't really want to be talking so much. We just want to like be together, and we can't, of course. And it's
I mean, so many things you just said I think are so good. For example, I would connect something that you just said about male friendships and how it's portrayed versus this concept, this idea that you mentioned the other day about the difficulty of forming friendships. And I think one huge key aspect of the difference in storytelling around friendships around women, non-binary people, and friendships around, you know, typically like men or boys, is the difficulty and complexity of making friendships. And even in movies, if a man or a guy is having a really hard time making friends, it's because there's like a severe personality situation, like a severe loner, severe loser. Like there's something like really, really wrong with that guy. Versus it's like, oh, women can be mean, girls can be mean. Our friendships are really difficult to form with women. Like with like male friendships in movies, there's just kind of like an easiness to it that I don't really see represented in friendships. And all friendships are complicated. All friendships have ups and downs, but I do think there's something about the concept of it's a lot easier to be in friendships when you are a guy versus when you are a girl or a woman. And oftentimes the difficulties that we experience in friendships, or our perception of friendships or who we make friends with, is created by external forces as well, right? Whether it's our insecurities, whether it's jealousy, a lot of that is brought on by things that are kind of outside of us. and that we internalize, right? Whether it's competition, whether it's beauty standards, all of these different things. And then as well, the proximity thing is a beast. It is a beast. I mean, I can't tell you if I would have more patience with my long distance friendships had COVID not happened.
Mm.
I can't I can't go back and observe myself, but that the last 2, 3 years, especially as somebody who's immune compromised as myself, I spent most of my friendships online.
Mhm.
I am born and raised in New York. New York is an incredibly transient place already. And so the mass exodus that happened for my friendships who all moved. And so now my threshold for maintaining my long distance relationships have really been impacted by the fact that I've been physically feels like alone 65% of my time in the last 3 years. And that's really tough.
Yeah. I feel that in a big way. I think especially since, we've been in Sweden for 2 years now. And I remember before we came, I wrote a list in my notebook to say if I were to host a dinner party now where we were in London, who would I invite and who would come? And if I was to host a dinner party in Stockholm, who would I invite, who would come? And the Stockholm list was longer, which amazed me really. And I think it's not that it's not been easy. It's not like I've landed here and I've got this amazing group of friends, but I have 2 or 3 friends, new friends that I see often. And that feels new for me and feels really precious and amazing.
Yeah.
Because in London, I didn't have that. And I think, it's also a consequence of the fact that I spent my whole decade of my 20s working and building a business from scratch. It's like we worked all day, all night, all weekend, every weekend. So when my peers were doubling down on those friendships from university and probably, quite frankly, having more fun, like living a lighter day to day, I feel the consequence of that now, because I think that 20s decade is often, it's like the pivot point almost, because you're leaving education, you're starting to move into that new phase of adulthood. I don't have any regrets there, but I think it's a trade-off of entrepreneurship that we don't talk about very much. And it's why I feel so strongly about this like work-life balance thing. It's like there is no such thing. It's like if you feel so intensely passionate about a cause or a purpose or the thing that you're building around, that will create imbalance somewhere else in your life. Like it just will. And how I think about it now is like, as long as I'm being really intentional about that and being really aware of it, then that's great, because it starts to go wrong when you're not intentional about it, and it just kind of becomes its own and takes over itself. That's when it starts to cause problems. And I see it so much in our bonds, like especially for folks who might be new to the podcast. Our flagship product at UPFRONT is called a bond, our 6-week course, and a bond is the collective noun for a group of women. And we had bond number 6, they just graduated in July. And Nagela and I worked with 512 bonders from over 20 countries. It was truly, truly brilliant. But there's a whole bunch of them who, even in those 6 weeks, started to feel their friends' discomfort at their new confidence. And we've started to talk quite explicitly about the fact that your growth often means outgrowing friendships. And that can be a really hard and difficult thing.
Yeah, I think, I want to talk about, because what we're talking about right now, when you mentioned your 20s, is kind of like the history of friendships you have really does affect the person you are today. And as we talk about our bond, maybe we can talk about some of the negative ways confidence and friendship have kind of intersected in our lives. You know, as you know, I recently went to a wedding of one of my best friends who moved to Texas, and it had been really rough for us over the pandemic, and we started repairing our friendship in the last kind of 3 4 months. But I went to this wedding, and this friend is honestly, it's like when you hear somebody say good things about a person, and then you may you experience it differently, but not her. Her and her husband now are truly just the best people. And it was really hard all weekend to not compare my life with their life. You use the dinner party analogy. I use the wedding analogy of just like, if I had a wedding, who would be there? Who would have been there to see the relationship grow? Who would have been there who would have understood me and my partner's story? Who's going to be there as, you know, if you are a person who desires marriage or desires a long partnership, who's going to be there in the next steps with us, right? And so we had a rehearsal dinner, and it was 2.5 hours of people saying amazing things about these people. And we had to cut it off, right? And it's really hard for that to not give you a complex to say, I don't have a third of this amount of people I feel like that I'm living and doing life with. And that's really tough. The other thing I'll say is, you know, I'm going to mention TikTok because, you know, I'm on TikTok too much. But something I've been hearing a lot about on TikTok is when you have not experienced a romantic relationship at a certain age point, it gives you a huge complex. And I feel the same way about friendships. When for me, I didn't really have between the ages of, I want to say, 16 and 23, I didn't have any solid friendships because I was truly unwell. I was going through clinical depression. I was recovering from anxiety disorders. And during one of my battle with clinical depression, I'll never forget in high school, there's this Chinese store we went to every single day, and I would get my dollar French fries. And my friends all sat me down in this Chinese store, and they all sat on one side and I sat on the other side, and they said, "Hey, you're too depressed. We can't be friends with you. It's bumming us out." And they all walked out of that Chinese food store. And I'm just sitting here eating my French fries, crying to my French fries, saying, I'm too much. I'm too much for people. They can't handle what I'm going through. And I was going through quite a lot. And so, not feeling like and the other friends that I had were people who needed me emotionally, but it wasn't actually like this balanced, reciprocated kind of friendship. And so I say all of that because it might be hard to not have a complex, right? At that wedding weekend, which I had a ton of fun, and I was in an Airbnb with a ton of other women from my friend's life. I mean, teenage Nagela came through in a huge way. It's really hard for those insecurities to go away when they've been formed at a very specific age for so long. Insecurities about, am I likable? Am I, you know, do people want to hang out with me? Am I just an accessory in this room? And all of that. I've had to learn how to grow my confidence around the areas of friendship, because when you feel just a little bit unlovable, when you feel like you're not the person that people easily choose, that impacts your confidence, and that impacts your perception of yourself. Because if you feel like if you're not worth the effort for people, then that makes you doubt your value and how much you want to put an effort in for yourself.
And I know you talked about that can lead to choosing people out of fear, and then building like a relationship that's built upon fear. So on your bad days, it feeds your insecurity. And on really bad days where your friendship's being tested, it can end your friendship. You know, it can have a really damaging effect. And this idea of like choosing people really carefully. You said, you know, this idea of hyper individualism, saying like, I don't need to invest in your community of people, because I only care about our little bubble and what you mean to me and what I mean to you. So it's like you can become so hyper focused on one or two people that you forget that kind of second tier of people who have the potential to become really deep, lasting friends.
Yeah, and I think, when I talk about choosing your people carefully, there's a tension there. Something that I said to myself a really long time ago is don't let fear be a motivator for any of your actions. And I think that's the core of that sentiment. I think I have chosen so many people out of fear of just not being chosen at all, not being seen at all. And so again, this even goes into romantic relationships, but picking people that need you, and essentially kind of this weird codependence of they'll stay because they need you. There's a level of codependence there. And I played different roles of codependency. I was either that friend that, so loyal, did everything for you, or that friend that like hyped you up all the time and told you how great you were and all of that jazz and didn't get that reciprocated. And so when I think about choosing people carefully, it's not, I think I am more open-hearted about friendship than I've ever been. I think the fact that I've been so hurt makes me a really open-hearted person, because now I'm excited to pursue friendship as a choice. And I think that's something I really learned as an adult, is how much friendship is a choice. I think when you're in school, it's so proximity based, and it's based on the fact that we see each other at this scheduled time. The older you get, the harder it is to have those things that's forcing you to meet this person over and over. And so I think for me that there's a tension there when between choice and fear, and choosing people and not choosing fear. And I think that's something that we need to understand what it looks like for us. It means different things for different people. We all have different boundaries. And so I am careful in not choosing people out of fear. I'm careful in choosing people who see friendship as valuable as I see friendship. I think that's also another thing. If somebody sees friendship as an accessory to life, they're not for me. If somebody sees friendship as a integral part of life, then I know that they're going to value and prioritize friendship in the way that I will, and we will be more aligned in that way. And I wouldn't feel like I'm begging for scraps.
And choosing to be intentional on how you show up, right, and how you communicate. I think those things also become like magnified and even more intense when you're not in the same location. It's like choosing to keep showing up and choosing to put yourself on the path of connection with that person. What do you think about this idea of you have to love yourself first before you can have friends who love you?
Ooh, child. Here's what I'll say. Completely honestly, you have to like yourself first. And I'll say that for me, loving yourself is a lifelong journey. And I don't always do it, but you have to like yourself first. You have to be like, I'm a person that I like and I am likable to people. But I remember when I got into my 20s, I started making healthier adult friendships. And I don't know how to put this into words. There's this book that I read where she said that she's never able to hold on to the love that she received because there's too many holes in her love bucket. And so as I got older and I started to make friendships, my insecurities were so deep. There are so many wounds and unhealed trauma from friendships. And we haven't even gone into my friendship traumas. Like my friendship traumas are not like they were mean to me. My friendship traumas are like, you know, boyfriends coming after me and a friend like picking up friends from like hotel rooms of strange men. Like it's crazy. My friendship trauma, very dramatic. That'll be like that.
He probably
That
for sure.
that'll be like our after dark podcast recording. But what was happening was, even when I started meeting people who wanted me, who desired me, who wanted to pursue friendship with me, I was too afraid. I did not believe them. I did not trust them. I tested my friends a lot. I needed to see what the breaking point was. At the sign of conflict, I ran because I was so afraid of the moment I became inconvenient to be a friend with was the moment people would abandon me, right? That was kind of like my childhood thing with the high school story. And so until I started liking myself, I didn't have any emotional resilience. Until I became a friend with myself, I couldn't combat the negative talk or the negative speak that I have about myself, which we talk about. Until I had confidence that I could even be a friend and have healthy friendships, you cannot form it. You cannot form something you think is incredibly unattainable for me. And until I started liking myself and I said, I like myself. I am worth being known. I am worth having amazing friendships. I am worth being chosen. And if somebody does not choose me, it has nothing to do with me and everything to do with them. And I can move on. And if you don't have that kind of resilience built in friendships, then everybody becomes disposable. And so you start to become the thing that you don't want to do is you treat people as disposable because you'd rather prioritize your protection. And that makes you a really hard person to get to know. What I love about our course is that it really teaches you to not only like yourself, but to love yourself. When you stop apologizing for the things that make you you, and you start embracing them, and you have a community of people who are embracing you. This may not be a PC statement. A lot of people may agree with this. I needed my friends to help me love myself.
Mm.
I did the work of liking myself, and I still do the work of loving myself. But I needed my friends, I needed my community to be a mirror to help change my perception and perspective of myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that happens in our bond. I think it happens with our weekly wins. With every post that we need support, with every breakout room, we are reflecting to people the best of themselves, right? And not in a, again, weird fantasy, like idolizing you, but it's saying, I see you and I love this about you and I appreciate this about you. And so even though it is, difficult to live a lot of your primary friendships online, what I do love about our community is that we are going deeper, right? And our intention is to create friendships that are more than just online friendships. And I've seen that happen over and over and over again is these friendships, they kind of leave our online spaces that Upfront may have, and they start to have WhatsApp groups or meetups, or they go to pubs together, or they go to dinner together, because we're just establishing like such a safe place for people to be vulnerable. And I think we model the concept of choosing people and choice, right? Choosing to be vulnerable, choosing to connect with other people, choosing to, share, have different perspectives and letting yourself be tested. Like I think we create such a beautiful kind of ground to model really great friendships. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we talk about being upfront. I'm proud that we know that friendships can have tension, but we know that friendships can save lives, it can change lives, it can impact lives. And so we don't just say we're a community just to say that we're a community because it's fun or trendy. We know that community has life-saving power, life-improving power, and we're constantly seeing that modeled over and over at Upfront.
Yeah, like I truly struggle to find the words without sounding like a big cliche to talk about the friendships that we get to witness And I, you know, anybody that's followed Upfront's journey or who knows me will know that I've talked really openly before about one of the biggest blockers for me in launching the online course, because of course I ran in-person workshops for many years, was there was a big part of me that just thought, it's not going to be the same. Like, how could it possibly work the same if we're not in the same room together? And of course, like, I am so grateful to myself and all the people who nudged me to try it out, because holy shit, like, not only is it the same, it's better, because we are building connections across geographies, across ethnicities, across ages, across professions, across identities. Bonders are connecting and building friendships with people who they would never normally come across, and at the same time meeting people in their city that they didn't know, all of whom have this super beautiful shared foundation of language, understanding, experience of confidence, feminism, power. You know, over COVID, obviously, like many of you, some of the bonders got really sick, were really struggling. People were rallying around, sending care packages, leaving notes. We've, you know, people recently going through bereavement, and they're saying to me, you know, I've still got bonders who I've never even spoken to, checking in with me months later, when all my real friends in my real life, in quotation marks, have kind of forgotten that I'm grieving. And I think the bond friendships are like this beautiful version of a friendship where there's so much of the hard work that happens to become aligned around values is already done. Like, I've made some amazing friends in the bond. In fact, one of the women who I talk about, who's one of my new friends here in Sweden, in Stockholm, she did bond one, and that was how, you know, that was how we met. And I know that people are looking in the window of Upfront and they're skeptical, thinking, you know, that it can't feel that way if you're in a Zoom call. And, you know, all I can say is it does. You know, you have to trust us on that and trust the process.
Yeah, and I want to say, I don't want to. I think this goes both for Upfront, online, offline relationships. I want to give props to every single person who shows up in Upfront and is putting in the work.
Yeah.
And so we talk about how these friendships are happening. Some of them have happened over 4 years, over 3 years or 2 years. Some of them have happened more instantly in buddy groups. And so I want to leave y'all with some of our rules of what we're defining as an upfront friendships. And again, this is both offline and online. And one thing is communication. It's not a cliche because it's too true to be a cliche. Being able to tell somebody, here's what being upfront in your relationships will do. It will protect intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And protecting intimacy is really important in a friendship. It really helps us stay close, stay connected. It helps us challenge each other in a place that's safe, and it keeps you from having just like a revolving door of people out of your life. It helps you grow deep friendships. That intimacy is not possible without upfrontness, without willing to say, this bothered me, this hurt me. Without sharing your truth, you can truly never be known. And intimacy is allowing somebody to know you and to continue to know you and to know you in really uncomfortable ways. And so upfrontness and intimacy are really important, especially if you feel like, I feel like I don't really have close friends. Like, I have friends that I hang out with, but I don't feel like I have those friends who see me and see into me. Ask for it. Ask for it. Not only communicate your needs, whether you need more time, you need more communication, you need to do things that cost less money. As a New Yorker, I can say that we all like to go out and eat, and I can't afford this lifestyle. But that communication and upfrontness will give you intimacy, and it'll help also it'll help set the people in your life up for success. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I have learned. I had to unlearn this concept of people earning my trust or earning the right to be my friends in a way that was really unhealthy. And so yeah, intimacy and upfrontness is so important. Intimacy and asking for what you need, upfrontness and asking for what you need. I think if we set our friends up for success, if we want them to actually like succeed and know us, let's give them the cheat sheet. They don't have to, you know, read our minds and expect things that have never been communicated. Like, I think part of good community is you set everybody up for success as much as you can, to know you, to understand you, and to love you. And you are desiring the same, so you can go ahead and love people really well.
Love it. Beautiful. We should introduce our challenge for the week. So your upfront challenge this week is 2 parts. So the first thing we want you to think about is one way that a lack of confidence shows up in your friendships, and then one thing you can do to activate confidence to overcome that. And Naj and I are going to give an example each. And as always, I would love for you to talk about this challenge and share it. For those of you in Global Bond, let's continue the conversation. You can email me, lauren@weareupfront.com. You can talk to us online on Instagram. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what this idea of an upfront friendship means to you. So Naj, talk to me about one way lack of confidence shows up in your friendship.
I mentioned it a few times, and actually this is something that really hit me in August, and I have been working on it since August, but this fear of asking for too much, of being a high maintenance friend. It's in fact made me such a low maintenance friend where I'm essentially an amoeba. I'm a friend amoeba. I'm just like floating into friendship a little bit, being like, I have no needs. I'm a single cell organism. And so this constant thing of, do I have permission to ask for more of their time, more of their attention, more of their energy? If I ask for more, will I become a burden? Or something that's even scarier is like, what if they don't want to give me that? Not for any other reason that besides they just don't see me as that person they want to invest in, you know? And so the way that I've actually been activating this is asking for more time. It's telling my friends, hey, I love you. I would love to spend more time with you. Hey, I would love at least a like monthly phone call. Especially for me, quality time is my love language. And right now, again, that kind of, I need some of that in-person connection. And so I've been trying to find ways for that in-person connection and asking for more. And it's scary and it's a little bit uncomfy, some of the reactions that I've been getting, but it's what I need. And I'd rather be honest about what I need than to resent my friend, as time goes on.
And I'm glad, yeah, good for you for doing it, for taking the step, doing the upfront thing. Yes. For me, I think lack of confidence shows up in this very fixed mindset that I have around thinking that making new friends is really difficult. And I hadn't realized quite how much I was holding that as like a really deep belief of like, oh, it's really, really hard. Like it's a super difficult thing. Like I'm tired and sweating, imagining it, like that kind of like exertion. So the first thing that I'm proud of is that I've recognized that, and I've noticed that story's like a really dominant narrative for me. So I guess the thing I'm doing to activate it is I'm trying really hard to change that narrative. I'm trying to notice when it pops up and to take those moments to remind myself of all the new friendships that I have now and have had in the past, that were in fact the opposite of difficult, that were in fact easy and joyful and you know, almost felt like floating on air, because it was like, of course I'm going to be good friends with this person, because we just clicked so quickly. And I think, you know, other ways that you can think about activating it, no matter kind of what's coming up for you around lack of confidence, other things you can do. Yes, you can change the narrative. You can talk to your friends, as Naj said, be really honest and open about what you need. You can ask yourself, like, what's real and what's true. I think often in all relationships, we do make up stories. We make so many assumptions about where we're at, where the other person is at. And most of the time, that's just hindering us. So it's like really digging to find out what's real and what's true, and really being generous, giving the friendship, the other person, generosity, creating a space for generosity to be without lots of pressure. And of course, grace. This is my word of the year, my new favorite word. I think grace activates confidence and activates intimacy with yourself, but also with the person that you're in friendship with. And all of the friendships that you're part of, whether it's offline, online, in the bond, outside of the bond, they are real, they are meaningful, they are validated. I am so grateful to be part of this community, for all the ways you've chosen each other and all the ways you have chosen Upfront, because we are making our own friendship story.